Welcome to the program. You're watching our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Monday, May 11th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Shin Se-min. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at this hour. The emergency COVID-19 relief payouts for all South Koreans begin. It's hoped that the one-off payment will minimize the economic fallout caused by the pandemic. People with birth years ending in 1 and 6 can apply today. A second wave incoming. South Korea sees a new cluster of COVID-19 infections from a nightclub in central Seoul, pushing new cases to a 2-month high on Sunday. The Education Ministry and the KCDC are discussing whether or not to go ahead with new school year set to begin this week. Plus, the U.S. unemployment rate will get worse before it gets better, says President Trump's Treasury Secretary, as fears rise that the jobless rate in the world's biggest economy could hit 25%. Our starting point this morning, South Korea has seen its exports fall during the first 10 days of this month due to the impact of COVID-19. The Korea Customs Service said Monday that exports from May 1st to May 10th amounted to some $6.9 billion, down over 46% from the same period last year. Of all, petroleum products were hit the hardest, plunging over 75%, while wireless communication products dropped over 35% and semiconductors down over 17%. And put that into countries, exports to the U.S. and the EU fell by more than 50%, while shipments to China fell about 29%. And factoring in fewer working days at the start of the month compared to last May, daily average exports were down some 30%. As the South Korean government pushes for a third supplementary budget to cushion the COVID-19-related economic fallout, officials are warning that the nation's government debt-to-GDP ratio could go as high as 46.5%, 3 years ahead of the government's initial projection. According to the Finance Ministry Sunday, the country's debt would reach $671 billion after applying over $19.5 billion, and that's the amount of the first and the second extra budgets combined. And the surge in the debt-to-GDP ratio would negatively affect South Korea's fiscal soundness, and the issue is likely to be brought up later this month during a meeting with officials from the ruling party, the government, and the top office. Starting from 7 a.m. Korea time this Monday, households in the country can apply for COVID-19 emergency disaster relief funds through their credit card companies. According to the 5-day rotation system that has been established to prevent a mad rush, those whose birth years end with 1 or 6 can apply today. Our Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
Citizens in South Korea can now apply for COVID-19 emergency disaster relief funds via the internet homepage and mobile application of their credit and debit card companies. To prevent people applying at once and overloading the system, the government will implement a 5-day rotation system according to the last digit of one's birth year, just like the country rationed the buying of protective face masks during the first weeks of the outbreak. The payment will be given out in the form of card points 2 days after they apply. Offline application begins at community service centers or banks from next Monday.
You can also apply in person at banks linked to your credit card, starting from May 18th. In this case, the service will be available at all branches.
1 million Korean won, or some $820 will be given to 4-person households, while single to 3-person households will receive less. The money can be spent within the regional district you live in. However, it's not allowed to be spent at certain businesses, including department stores, large retailers, as well as entertainment venues like bars and clubs.
While there are restrictions in terms of the area and businesses using the relief fund, each in accordance to its aim of boosting consumption and revitalizing regional economy, each designed to be most convenient to the people.
The money needs to be spent by August 31st, or it will be considered a donation and used to support those who've lost their jobs or have been put on unpaid leave due to the outbreak. For those who do not apply, the money will also be considered a donation. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
And that is a developing story of the latest COVID-19 super spreader here in South Korea. The capital city of Seoul has closed down more than 2,100 bars and night spots due to a new cluster of coronavirus infections jumping to a high not seen in the past 2 months. With health authorities on high alert over more potential infections, officials are even considering postponing the start of the new school year again. Our Ji-young tells us more.
South Korea has seen a total of 54 confirmed cases linked to a COVID-19 patient who earlier this month visited clubs and bars in Itaewon, Seoul's popular night spot. Among them, about a third have been confirmed as asymptomatic. According to the Central Disease Control Headquarters on Sunday, most of the 54 confirmed cases were people in their 20s and 30s. The patient is a 29-year-old man who lives in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do province, who was found to be infected after he visited 5 different clubs in Itaewon on May 2nd. Health authorities are concerned that people who could have been exposed to the virus from clubs at Itaewon might not cooperate in epidemiological investigations as they could refrain from disclosing their whereabouts. The head of South Korea's Central Disease Control Headquarters, Chung Eun-young, pledged at a press briefing Sunday to conduct the investigation by protecting people's personal information as much as possible. She also urged people who have been to clubs at Itaewon to get tested as soon as possible, considering the impact on their families, friends, and society as a whole. Meanwhile, the new school year for students in their third and final years of high school, which had been due to start on May 13th, might be pushed back a week or two. According to Minister of Education Yoo Eun-hye on Sunday, officials are discussing whether to postpone the start date as students' safety is the top priority. Ji-young, Arirang News.
And staying with that story, the Minister of Education will be holding a meeting with health officials later this morning on to whether discuss postponing the start of the new school year again. Minister Yoo Eun-hye will be holding a video conference with officials at the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at 11 a.m. Korea time. And the talking point will mostly likely be the start date of South Korea's new school year for elementary, middle, and high schools, and how long to postpone it if a delay is necessary. South Korea has sent 2 million protective face masks to the United States, which is struggling in its fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Seoul's foreign ministry explained that the shipment was based on a phone call between the leaders of the two countries in late March, during which they addressed the need to jointly respond to the pandemic. The masks are scheduled to arrive in the U.S. early Monday morning local time, and they will be distributed to the healthcare facilities and medical professionals in FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It has emerged that Chinese President Xi Jinping reportedly pressured the Director General of the World Health Organization back in January to hold off on issuing a global pandemic warning about the COVID-19 just as the virus was ravaging the city and spreading fast. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
In January, COVID-19 sprouted up in the Chinese city of Wuhan, quickly spreading to neighboring countries such as Hong Kong and Singapore. Around that time, the World Health Organization held a 2-day emergency meeting. However, the outbreak was not declared a pandemic.
This is, though, an emergency in China, but it has not yet become a global health emergency. It may yet become one.
Citing BND, Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, German media reports that there are suspicions that WHO's decision to delay the pandemic declaration was caused by pressure from Chinese President Xi Jinping. The report says Xi called for a meeting with the WHO chief on January 21st and asked for the pandemic warning to be delayed. Even when South Korea saw its first infection on January 20th, followed by the U.S.'s first infection the following day, the WHO did not declare a global pandemic, a decision the BND estimates resulted in the loss of 4 to 6 weeks in the fight against COVID-19. The WHO released a statement calling the allegations unfounded and untrue, adding the WHO chief and President Xi did not speak on January 21st, nor have they ever spoken by phone. The WHO continued to say China confirmed human-to-human transmission to the UN Health Agency on January 20th, and that the agency publicly declared 2 days later that such transmission was taking place in Wuhan. The statements also come as President Trump has blasted China for holding back critical information about the virus, including its failure to accurately report on the number of cases. 이승재, Arirang News.
The unemployment rate in the United States is getting progressively worse by the month, and experts are warning that worst is still to come. However, despite the tough times, top Trump administration officials say that it's not comparable to other trying times, as in those cases, the American economy was not forced to shut. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
The U.S. unemployment rate reached 14.7% in April, a rate last seen during the Great Depression. That's not to say it has reached the peak either. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin is warning the rate could hit 25%. He says that while the Great Depression was an economic crisis, the American economy was forced to almost completely shut down in 2020 because of COVID-19, which is why it's more damaging than the Depression. To make matters worse, some experts say the jobless numbers aren't as cut and dry as they appear.
Some experts believe that that's actually 5 percentage points less than what the real unemployment rate is, because many people are on part-time work at this point, and many people have not even been able to file claims because so many people are trying to file the unemployment claims. They simply cannot get through to make the filing.
While the experts mostly agree that the worst is yet to come, the Trump administration says it's all hands to the pump to reopen the economy. Mnuchin told Fox News that more economic plans are on the way to the public. The White House also assured the American public that there will be a brighter future ahead.
And I can tell you this, the president that got us to the hottest economy in modern history, he's done it once, and he can do it again.
President Trump is pushing relentlessly to reopen the economy. For example, President Trump congratulated Ultimate Fighting Championship and its owner, Dana White, prior to the no-spectator UFC 249 event that happened on Saturday night, local time, in Jacksonville, Florida. On the other hand, the situation within the administration suggests the virus is still a danger. 2 employees in the White House have tested positive for COVID-19, including President Trump's valet and Vice President Mike Pence's press secretary. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. State Department says its offer to hold meaningful negotiations with North Korea is still valid. Speaking to Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency on Sunday, an official said the U.S. is willing to take a flexible approach to reach a balanced agreement related to all promises made at the first North Korea-U.S. summit in Singapore. Now, this is seen as Washington showing increased willingness to resume talks with the North since Kim Jong-un made a public appearance after a long absence and speculation over his health. The State Department added that it supports inter-Korean cooperation, but it should come hand in hand with progress in denuclearization.
Good morning. We had a dense fog hanging over us today with about 1/10 the usual visibility this morning. But thankfully, the fog is clearing now. But those of us in the central region need to be aware of high levels of yellow dust during the day, while central regions will see light rainfall late tonight. Temperature-wise, numbers will be 3 to 8 degrees higher today in most parts, hovering below the seasonal norms for upper regions. But southern parts of the country will have early summer-like temperatures this afternoon. And for a closer look, Gyeongju will get up to 28 degrees, Daegu at 27 degrees this afternoon, while Seoul will only get up to 21 degrees. And we'll see more clouds than sun today. Readings will remain below the norms for the first half of the week for Seoul. Then rain is in the forecast for Friday, which could linger until Saturday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for views around the world.
And that is it for this edition of Arirang News. As always, thanks for watching.